Hey everybody, how you doing today? It is September 5th, 2020, and I have a few videos that I'm working on today with some pretty important information that I want you to get. Sorry that I haven't had too many videos the last 2 days. I actually had 3 in a row blocked yesterday, so I was not able to even post 3 videos, and one I spent upwards of 12 hours working on this video to put it together for you, and it was banned worldwide before I could even get it up. So I'm just going to continue to try to make these videos a little quicker so that if they do get blocked, I can still make another one to get more information out to you. Alright, let's get into this one right here. It says, experts project autumn surge in CV cases with a peak after Election Day. Well, how convenient, right? I mean, we've been talking about this for a long time. This isn't something that we didn't say was going to happen. We knew this was going to happen because they've been showing us this is what they were going to happen, right? We know coming into flu season they were going to use flu numbers to, make everything look so much worse with CV, and right after the, election day, like people eyes have to be completely closed to not see this, right? It says, infectious disease experts are warning of a potential cold weather surge of CV cases, a long-feared second wave. So here we go again. Remember, we're going to get back into this second wave that Gates was talking about. Pretty much they all were, but Gates was really talking about, the second pandemic, this pandemic 2, he was calling it, okay?
Well, the idea of a bioterrorist attack is kind of the nightmare scenario because they're a pathogen with a high death rate would be picked. Now, the good news is, I'm not trying to depress you, most of the work we're going to do to be ready for pandemic 2, I call this pandemic 1.
Most of the work we're going to do to be ready for pandemic 2, I call this pandemic 1.
Most of the work we'll do to be ready for that are also the things we need to do to minimize the threat of bioterrorism.
It says, of infections and deaths, possibly at a catastrophic scale. More fear, for sure. It could begin well before Election Day, November 3rd, although researchers assume the crest would come weeks later, closer to when fall gives way to winter. Is it not obvious every single time we listen to these people that they know what's going on? That it is a plandemic, that they have planned out every part of it? How convenient that they know exactly what's going to happen again, right? That it's going to happen right now, at this time, it's going to happen, going into 2021. Sounds like a perfectly laid out plan to me. It says, an autumn surge in CV19, the disease caused by the novel CV, would not be an October surprise. It has been hypothesized since early in the pandemic because of the patterns of other respiratory viruses. It's been hypothesized since the beginning, but not because of what you just said, because it was planned since the beginning. This says, my feeling is that there is a wave coming, and it's not so much whether it's coming, but how big it's going to be, said Eli Klein, an epidemiologist at, of course, the place we've been hearing nonstop, Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. Says the pandemic is already a dominant campaign issue, and even a spike in deaths might not apply much torque to the presidential race. But outbreaks in some states could bring pressure further down the ballot and conceivably affect turnout if there is so much community spread that voters who plan to cast ballots in person feel unsafe going to the polls. Do you hear how this is crazy. Listening to that right there, that is like massive programming. People sitting at home weren't even thinking about this. I'm sure even if the virus was, if they said it was getting worse, people still would have went out to, most of the people still would have went out and voted, okay? But for them to seriously put it like this, because they're going to feel unsafe going into the polls, programming. It says the warning from researchers come at a moment when, despite a rise in cases in the upper Midwest, national numbers have been trending downward at a slow pace for several weeks following the early summer surges in the Sun Belt. It says, respiratory viruses typically begin spreading more easily a couple weeks after school resumes classes. Although the pandemic has driven many school districts to remote learning, there is a broad push across the country to return to something like normal life. All right, now I am going to show you something here from our local school, and one of the main reasons why I would not send him back. I knew that they would be doing this kind of thing. Okay, check this out right here. These are pictures of a consent form that was sent home. And do you like what is in the middle? Yeah. They are now going to have the nurse come to the school. So instead of them saying, "Hey, you need to have your child caught up on their shots, and their vaxes, go take them to a doctor." Oh no, they want you to sign off right here. They want you to sign off for the flu vax. They want you to sign off for each one of these. Look at this, and then of course you have other with this, just all the rest of them. And guess what else other means? And as soon as you check other, that doesn't mean it has to be right there in the parentheses of what they're going to give your child. So when you check that other box, you are checking for the CV vax. There's no doubt, right? So here we go. So they are trying to force families into not only the flu vax, but every other vax they can think of. This is where it's been headed. We knew this is why they wanted these kids to go back to school, was for that exact reason. They want to be able to put this vax in them. They want to be able to control them, and they want to be able to put them in a quarantine or do whatever they want to put people and parents in a position where their backs are completely against the wall and they have absolutely no decision except for, I got to do whatever the government says. I just want to get my kid, or I just want to keep my my son safe or my daughter safe. These are set up. They've been set up since the beginning. It says the Labor Day holiday weekend is a traditional time of travel and group activities, and like Independence Day and Memorial Day, could see transmission of the virus if people fail to take precaution. And viruses tend to spread out more easily in cooler, less humid weather, which allows them to remain viable longer. As the weather cools, people tend to congregate more indoors. Do you not hear the programming? They're literally just telling you what's going to happen. They're giving this information to people, just programming them. Oh, so here we go. We'll say the headlines. Ready? We can go through the headlines coming Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right? People did not listen. They did not, go with all of the warnings that we gave out. All of us scientists and all of us experts told everybody, you need to stay socially distanced. You need to wear a mask. You didn't do that. Now all the cases they're all virus, cases are spiking, and they're through the roof, due to all of this done on Labor Day weekend. Now we have to do a complete lockdown. It doesn't matter. We gave you the information. That's exactly what they're going to say. It's all your fault. You didn't listen. You went and had your own life. You went and, saw one of your friends. You didn't do exactly what they said. So now you are the reason. It says the CV has a relatively long incubation period, and the disease progression in patients with severe illnesses also tends to be drawn out over several weeks. As a result, any spike in death will lag weeks behind a spike in infections, and the infection surges have consistently followed the loosening of shutdown orders and other restrictions. Do you hear it? Shut down. Here we go again, right? And you love how they're doing this too. They change everything. Oh, it has a long incubation period. We don't know what it has. You've made up something new every single week. You add symptoms, you add, everything to it. You change how long somebody needs to be in isolation, in quarantine. It's pathetic to think that people are still falling for this. I'm sorry, but I'm at a point where it's almost angering. It's just horrible that people are still falling for this. And now they're talking, oh, well, just because the deaths, that they'll lag weeks behind. You get what that is, right? So right now, if they put out a massive spike in the next, couple weeks, they can say, well, they can push it, and show all these cases that went up, but then there's no deaths. Well, then once flu season hits, right, and all people really do die from those, and people are dying from, wearing a mask and crushing your immune system and everything else. When all those deaths start happening, late fall, early winter, they'll be able to say, oh, look, we told you, we told you. It says by year's end, 410,000 people in the United States will have died under the model's most likely scenario. That's more than double current fatalities. The model also produced best case and worst case scenarios ranging from 288,000 to 620,000 deaths by January 1st, depending on the degree to which people wear masks and adhere to social distancing and take other precautions. You better listen to us. Listen to us or else. This is what this is saying. I firmly believe we will see distinct second waves, including in places that are done with their first waves. New York City, I'm looking at you. said Andrew Neumer, an epidemiologist of the University of California at Irvine, who studied the October surge in cases when the mild pandemic influenza virus circulated in 2009. Let's go back up here to New York, right? Oh, I'm looking at you. So just prepare, New York. You know it's coming, right? You know a spike is coming. You don't even have to wait for it. Plan for it. It's going to happen. And you had idiot like Cuomo up there talking about, remember the wave going all the way across one way and then coming all the way back to the East Coast like a wave in a bathtub. I mean, just pathetic things that he was saying like that.
Also, practically, we know that if we don't control the virus in the other states, that we are then in danger of dealing with a second wave. Not the second wave they talked about, which was a mutated virus comes back. It's a second ricochet of the first wave, because we're still in the first wave. But the wave bounced to the West Coast and is now bouncing back like a wave in a bathtub. And that's our quarantine, etc.
But here it comes, right? Because they already know. I expect fall waves starting in mid-October and getting worse as fall heads into winter and reaching a crescendo certainly after the election, he said. Some places will peak around Thanksgiving, some places will peak around Christmas, some places not until January and February. Can you believe this, that people think this wasn't planned? I'm sorry if I raised my voice so much right there, but I mean, how can you not see it, right? How do they know this? This thing is so unknown. They don't know anything about it. It's so contagious, blah, blah, blah. But they sure know the timeline on everything, don't they? Said if that's correct, the worst impacts will occur after the campaigning is over and the ballots have been cast. The exact timing may be moot in any case, said David Rubin, the director of Policy Lab at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, who contended that most people have already made judgments about how the candidates have handled the pandemic. I really don't care, and none of you should either. You shouldn't care how these candidates, you shouldn't care anything about them. They're all against you. It's them against us, government against us, that's it. There is no choosing a good side in these elections. I'm sorry, there's not. I wouldn't foresee anything happening between now and the election that would change the dynamics of the election. There we go, more programming, right? President Donald Trump's approval rating has been remarkably consistent through the pandemic, noted Kyle Klondike of the University of Virginia Center for Politics. Though Trump lost some ground in May and June, he is no less popular than he was last fall, when the economy was strong and people could travel freely. Now, I want to say something real quick right here, too. I've been telling everybody over and over again that with this stimulus, right, everybody's waiting on this second stimulus, they're just going on vacation, they don't care, and you continue to believe that they're telling you to wear a mask for your own good, because, you should care about, the greater person, your elderly and your families. That's why you should obey the mask law, except... how does that, line up at all with them not giving you any stimulus? Unless it's just like I think it is, and they're going to give you the stimulus right before the election. That's how they're going to do it. That's how you will push one side to the other. They're going to manipulate that, right? If, they come out with a stimulus that looks good for the Democratic side, that's what their people are going to want to vote that way. And if Trump comes out and gives out a massively larger, stimulus than what they were, what the Democrats were going to do, then of course he'll get a shift in, the popularity. People go towards Trump. That's what this is all about. It's all manipulation. It's so obvious. It's so in your face. And you have to see that you're being played. It says there has been a little bit of erosion, but not a ton, Klondike said. Of course, in a close election, even a small shift could be the difference between victory and defeat. See, that small shift is what I'm talking about. It says Rubin raised another possible consequence of increased viral transmission in advance to the election. Candidates could become sick. See, and seeing this, there's a couple scenarios that could come out to play, right? We could have scenarios where, the voting's not in for, who knows when. It could take months, weeks, so you could sit there having nobody won on either side, and neither party winning, and I've seen some things where it says if they cannot figure that out, that Pelosi will take over. I need to look back into that because somebody said that in the comments below. I mean, it really don't matter to me who takes over, because we know what the goal is. We know there's puppet masters controlling all this. They're pulling the strings, not these people standing up there. But the way that they're talking about candidates getting sick, I mean, it just screams that they can just manipulate everything, right? Says the candidates are campaigning, they're mixing with people, Rubin said. I would not be surprised to see a couple people get sick, and whether that all goes all the way to the presidential candidates could be a game changer. This virus has got pretty close to the president a couple of times. Man, just reading this is just like, I can hear every bit of it, how they're like whispering this into everybody's ears, you know. It's gotten pretty close to the president a couple times, so be ready. It might happen. The timing of the pandemic remains unpredictable, in part because it is not yet a seasonal virus. Seasonal viruses, such as those that cause influenza and the CVs that cause common colds. You wondered that, we'll just stop right here. Let's guess what CV is. Let's guess what, CV19 is. Maybe the common cold or the flu. Are remarkably faithful to the calendar, with most typically flaring in the fall, a couple of weeks after children go back to school and start bringing their newly acquired infections into their homes. Really? So people can read this and be told this and not realize that they sent the kids back to school and that it was okay? Like they thought that they weren't gonna bring home these these infections and these viruses? They knew it. Listen. A couple of weeks after children go back to school and start bringing their newly acquired infections into their homes. It's all a setup. But most people still have no immunity to the novel CV. It spreads opportunistically in all kinds of weather. Despite millions of infections and more than 184,000 deaths, most people in the United States remain susceptible. Is this not pathetic? Oh my God, everybody is susceptible, opportunistically. Really? So it goes after African Americans, then it goes after Latinos, then it goes after the elderly, then it goes after kids. This is horrible. This is so obvious, and oh yeah, it spreads in all kinds of weather. It's the first one to ever do that, right? A pandemic virus is different because most of us do not have prior immunity to this virus. Says that means it's a lot more contagious than a typical virus that we get every year. There is a small body of evidence that a person who gets the virus acquires a limited amount of immunity. And there are also indications that people can become infected a second time. This part right here is very important because this part right here is a push to make sure that people are vaxxed no matter what, even if they have gotten it before and survived it. If people believe that they, say they tested positive for CV and then they obviously don't die from it and they get better, this is what this is about. See, because it's saying, oh, you only have a limited amount of immunity, so guess what? You better run and go get the vax, right? Because you're only safe for so long. You got to see all the stages of it set out. It's right here in front of us. It said it's possible that some people suffer minimal or no effects from the CV because of exposure to other viruses, which prime the body's immune system against pathogens generally. Okay, do you remember the video that I just did probably a week ago? I will link this in the description about them talking about how the common cold, somebody who had the common cold, right, and had fought off the common cold was less likely to get CV because their body, had already had the had already had the cold, a common cold, so its body was ready for CV. Really? This evil, horrible, deadly pandemic that's killing, gonna end the world is stopped because you already had the common flu? Says this is seen as one plausible explanation for the unusual percentage of people the CDC estimates 40% who become infected with the novel CV but are asymptomatic. Oh, but there still is no approved vax. There you go. I told you to get to it. Most experts do not expect one to be distributed, at least in any significant numbers, before the end of the year at the earliest. And broad distribution could take many months. This is all Agenda 21. You better get ready. It says, meanwhile, the country's health departments are reporting roughly 40,000 positive test results every day, more than double the number in May when many states began reopening after the first wave of infections. Okay, so are you hearing that? Since we reopened, everything is going up, right? Now they're talking about the wave again. It's that you keep hearing everybody talk about the first wave. Now it's the second wave. They're going to start all that, terminology back and forth. That's what they're going to do. And now how they're prepping it, saying that, oh, look, it's double even after, we reopened the first time. So what are they saying? It's time to lock down again, everybody. We got to do it for you and your family. You got to lock down. You got to listen. You got to wear a mask. You got to go get tested. You got to get the vax. You have to obey our every word. And if you don't, we will put you in a quarantine facility. Says the question is it going to spread out of control broadly? Shaman said, are we going to get down to 10,000 cases or under 1,000 and then to my magical number of 500? The thing about this disease, it really spins out of control. Programming, get ready. This winter is when they're going to literally unleash all of this on us. You are about to be put in a police state that we've never seen before. I mean, it's all right here. The writing's on the wall, and it's literally wrote in bold, black lettering and screaming with exclamation points. It's right in front of you. You know, listen to this. It says Klein, the Hopkins epidemiologist warns the fall wave is likely to be more intense than the peak in the spring. Maryland had 2,000 CV19 patients in hospital at its peak in April, he said, and his mid-range scenario envisions twice that many hospitalized patients at the next peak. Do you not see that they know exactly what's going to happen? Because they're going to manipulate everything, whether they're going to, lie about cases, lie about deaths, lie about the entire darn thing. They know what's happening. At Hopkins, doctors are discussing what they call Surge 2.0, and I'm looking into this too, because I've been hearing a couple things say this, and I want to look into it more. They are envisioning, listen, I mean, people, I know I keep saying listen to this, but it's right in front of us. Envisioning outbreaks that could potentially overwhelm hospitals with CV19 patients. Even less catastrophic surges could hamper other kinds of non-CV19 medical care, said Lisa an associate professor of medicine and infectious diseases. Another expert, right? I'm so sick of these experts. But I have a question real quick. If you all are thinking this is a very good possibility that we're going to have this massive of a wave, why are you still allowing the children to go to school? Can you explain that to me? You've not only said here that you believe this will all ramp up once the kids bring all those, those new infections home. So why are you allowing it? Why are you letting them go back to school? Because this is all planned, because that is part of the plan. It's sick and evil, and you see it right out in the open now. It says, even though we have had many cases and we have had so many tragic deaths, we have the vast majority of people who are not immune to the virus. Without a therapeutic or a vax, we are still in a position where the transmission of the virus depends heavily on our behaviors every day. You better listen there. That's another where they're just telling you, you better listen to us, you better behave. Do you want to be grounded? Because you're going to be grounded if you don't listen. You're going to be grounded. We're going to put you on a lockdown. We're going to put you in a quarantine. Are you ready for that? We're going to take away you're not going to be able to work. You're not going to be able to drive. These are threats, people. You have to see this. You have to share this. You have to talk about this, please. It says that is a common refrain among those working around the clock to understand this pandemic. You don't need to work around the clock to understand a pandemic that you created. It's not hard to know what's going on with your pandemic because it was all planned from the start. It says we are collectively in control of how many cases or deaths there are. It says forecast more than a month from now makes sense only if they are conditional on how we behave. See? I mean, this is pathetic, right? How we behave? I mean, literally, we're going to get grounded. Seriously, you're going to get grounded. That's it. Says people's behavior is a dramatic detriment here. Says Christopher Murray, the director of IHME. Look at what happened in Florida after the spike in cases. People got scared. They started wearing masks and they stopped going to bars. But the converse is also true. If people stop being vigilant, the virus bounces back. This is horrible. It truly, truly is horrible how they're talking about it right here. I mean, look how they even use how they had a setup story from the beginning, right? I mean, obviously, the spike in cases in Florida was part of the plan, right? They have a governor that goes against, reopening, or goes against, keeping things shut down and closing his bars. And then there's a massive spike, right? And then, what do you know? Then people got scared and they started wearing masks and they stopped going to bars. You see how they just play you from the beginning? The spike in cases in Florida was part of the plan. That was part of the setup. Everybody goes out and falls for their setup right then, and then look, they use it in the end. But I'm going to end this here. I didn't know this article was this long, but man, it had a lot in it, so I'm glad I just kept going. Everybody, stay safe, stay strong. Please do not panic. Don't fear. I mean, if you hear in my voice, I pray that you don't hear fear, because I'm not scared, but I will be prepared. And that is what I want all of you to be. If you are prepared, and your family is prepared, and you have a plan, you have it all ready to go right with your family, I guarantee you, you are much, you're way better off, and you have a much better chance of being ahead of this evil that's being unleashed. All you can do is try to plan this and be prepared ahead, because they're coming after us. You can see it. They're coming after all of our channels. They're deleting tons of channels, and mine may be tomorrow. So please continue to share this information. We need to tell everybody right now, because we truly are running out of time. Everybody stay safe. Don't ever fear anything. Don't fear man, only fear God. We'll talk to you soon. God bless.